First of all, thank you everybody for coming. Today, with the USAID Economic Security Program staff and its leadership are truly delighted that together with our program partners, Film Cluster Georgia, Georgia National Film Center, and Enterprise Georgia, we provide you with truly unique opportunity to meet and gain inspiration, directions, perspective from the world top-notch experts in location scouting, professionals that have really spectacular success in their careers will impart their knowledge and wisdom to you. We, the USAID Economic Security Program, while thinking of different ways and approaches to enhance skills and upgrade knowledge of talents from different industries and sectors, put high value on master classes, because we truly think that they are both inspirational and aspirational interventions that provide life-enhancing experience to the learners. We truly think that this event, in general, master classes and this event especially are unique in its way because the outstanding experts not only will provide practical tips to you, but also present and share valuable knowledge that they have gained over the years of experience. And we believe that this event and this experience sharing will venture you into the undiscovered territories and let you change your views and understanding about this particular profession as location scouting. That is very demanded profession worldwide, and for Georgia, we hope will be especially important. Nothing would happen and nothing will happen in future, and let me admit that our program plans to offer a series of master classes for different industries with engagement of top-class experts worldwide, without complete understanding and strong support from our donor, USAID, and in particular from Mr. David Ziglauri, the USAID Economic Growth Office, Senior Private Sector Development Advisor. Let me give the floor to Mr. David Ziglauri, who will speak on behalf of USAID.
Thank you. It's a great pleasure for me to be here. Technically, it's the first time I have interaction with this type of group, and I want to use this opportunity to say 3 points. First, for us, for USAID, which is US government's the International Development Agency, and this is an organization which takes taxes from you and use these resources to help countries like Georgia to grow. And for us, key priority is to help Georgians to have more jobs, more high-value jobs. So that's why we are doing economic growth type of work, including in this sector. And of course, we also have many other goals, like helping Georgia to be more democratic, more Western-oriented, and so on and so on. But for my team, key purpose is to support Georgians to have more jobs, to have more incomes, and to have more stronger economic sectors. So this was one message I wanted to mention. By the way, USAID for last 30 years invested $1.8 billion in Georgia, and this was just donation to country. And of course, attention before was totally different. Now it's changing. And most of the sectors I'm supervising is agriculture, tourism, production, and luckily, team behind the Economic Security Project, headed by Mark, which I'm sure you know, about 1 year ago came and told, together with many sectors, creative industry is one of the sectors where Georgia has interesting opportunity. Let's invest US taxpayers' resources, because there is interesting cases. And this was time when Fast and Furious was happening in the city and in country, and that's where we started initial interaction with Universal and later with others. So, and to move to the next message for us, for last 3 years, for USAID, we are saying that development should go through private sector because private sector is one who creates jobs. And I'm not saying only Georgian private sector, but I mean international ones. So we are trying to partner with Coca-Cola, with McDonald's, with Etsy, with PayPal, maybe now in future with Marriott. And luckily we also started small collaboration with Universal. We have a couple of success stories, small but still. So for us it would be great pleasure to work with you and through you help Georgians to better feel what is happening in the industry and play more active role in the creative sector. So anyway, I want to say one message to you. So we want to partner with you, not only through economic security project, but through other work, because we are running about 30 projects. I'm managing 6 projects, of course, with different directions, but still. And third one, of course, I want to say thank you to all of you and your kind of clusters, I mean where you belong, for the Enterprise Georgia and Georgian government, which is our big partner for many years, specifically for last period, like film cluster, as well as, I don't know what was the last one, but you know better. So again, thank you for being active, and as I mentioned, way how we will support sector to grow, that would make us easier to make future decisions and be more active as well. So we can work with you, we can support you, but we need also to see good results. We need to see more Georgians better engaged in this sector, better employed. So again, thank you to your contribution. I know people expect a lot from this 2-3 hour session, and I also would be happy to be here and hear what you would be suggesting us now as well as during dinner, when we expect you to give some positive and negative feedback to engage in our future work. Again, thank you for being here and thank you for coming.
Mr. David Washadze to share his experience and few words with us. Film Cluster and Georgian National Film Center.
Okay, thank you very much. So first of all, I want to thank our guests because it was really interesting traveling with you and see only small part of Georgia, because we have much more interesting location to offer to the world. Secondly, I want to say that we added some numbers, and we saw that from 2016 till 2019, the film industry turnover has grown 4 times. And we want that government of Georgia, and we hope government of Georgia also see this and understand that this is an industry. This is an industry which creates jobs, which creates high-value jobs, high-paid jobs, and which promotes country internationally a lot. Because during our past experience, we know that in US, everyone, when we are talking about cash rebate program of Georgia, everyone thinks that it's a state of Georgia, which is one of the best. But I hope in nearest future we have very big potential how to grow and how to attract more film projects here. So I just want to ask you then, when you start presenting job of location scout, to give us more information. How do you think, what part is the strongest part of Georgia as a country with locations, diverse locations? Well, from this trip, which locations were more attractive for you as a location scout? That's one thing. And another thing for me, and I think for all of our guests, will be interesting to see how to position, how to create content, visual content, or information to give more information to the film industry, which is very big, but it's very easy to attract. Thank you very much.
Now we would like to ask one of our program's key partners, Enterprise Georgia representative Tatia Bitinashvili, to say a few words.
Hello, First of all, thank you for coming, and I would love to thank to our friends because in this COVID pandemic situations, they confirmed to come in these untapped locations in Georgia. And I will also mention that I represent Enterprise Georgia, which is a national agency under the Ministry of Economy, and we implemented this Film in Georgia program in 2016. And I'm sure you are aware that we have held a lot of familiarization tours in Georgia, and I'm really grateful that this is the first time we did it with collaboration with different stakeholders, and I would like to thank them, the USAID Security Program, National Film Agency, Georgian Film Cluster, and I don't want to talk too much about our role. I would prefer rather hear from you guys what was your experience and what was your expectations when you decided to come in Georgia, and for sure I would love to hear advices to improve our next, for example, familiarization tours, and to improve how to promote Georgia. What are the key aspects you think that must be in the top way? So thank you.
I know you are looking forward to starting the event and gain most from our outstanding world-class experts, and Katie, my colleague from the USAID Economic Security Program, will facilitate the process.
Thank you very much. Now that the welcome remarks are behind us, I am delighted to start the Creative Industries Masterclass on location scouting as well as location management. And for the past week, it was my pleasure to share your company and see Georgia and rediscover it from a completely different eyesight, because we learned so much from you guys during this trip. And just to mention that every one of you has already seen their very impressive IMDb profiles. So instead of listing all the high accomplishments that they had, I would just mention that their combined experience is 1 century of amazing insights. Not that it relates to their age, but rather experience. I want to underline that. And we have here today Laurie Bolton, who yesterday had a birthday, so happy birthday, Laurie. Then we have Peter Gluck, and we have Ailt Jones on my right side. So please note that we will absolutely give you a chance to ask questions. I'm sure all of you have something you want to learn from today. So in case there are things that I don't cover during my interaction with them, feel free to raise hands and I will be happy to give you floor. So without further ado, welcome guys. We are delighted to have you. We are extremely thankful to James Lin from Universal Studios to suggest that we invite you guys for this first tryout of location scouting. And from now on, we will be bettering this process based on your feedback. So thank you again, and let's start with you, Laurie. I want to know what made you interested in the creative industries, and what made you decide to go into this sector, and how did you acquire this profession?
I don't know. Am I on?
Yes.
Oh, okay, good. I did it. I was looking at my microphone and not listening to the question, I'm so sorry to say.
No problem. I can repeat it. I'm just curious how you got into this profession, what made you select creative industries and location scouting and managing in particular, and what was your experience in getting to know this industry?
Well, I went to school, I thought, to write, and I had a professor who killed my passion for writing and ended up giving me an A for the course, but took any enjoyment I got out of writing away from me. So after undergraduate school, I didn't know what to do, so I went to graduate school. And I just sort of fell into it. I was in Boston at the time, and after I graduated, I did whatever I could in the industry. I worked mostly in industrials. I did some commercials, and as features came to town, I would work on features, and I decided I liked that. Then I met my husband on a movie in Boston, and he asked me to move to LA, and I figured I could always move back if I don't like it, and might spend the rest of my life regretting it if I don't give it a try. So I went to LA not knowing anyone but him, and I did know the production manager that I worked with on Witches of Eastwick in Boston, and he had said to me, if you ever come to LA, look me up. So I went to look him up and I gave him my resume, and I thought for sure he'd say, this may work in Boston, but this is not really how we do things in LA. And instead he handed me a deal memo, and he got me in the union, and he got me my first job. So, which was not a Sylvester Stallone movie, but we don't have to go there. And from there I never looked back. It was great, and so it's not really who you know, it's that first opportunity where you get a foot in the door. And the first job I had was doing craft service, which is basically bringing hot stuff to the crew when it's cold out and bringing cold stuff to the crew when it's hot out. And you're basically like a slave. and it suddenly hit me that they're paying me to make people happy. And instead of looking at it as being a slave, I sort of took a Zen approach and realized this is actually a good way to meet everybody and get to see who's doing what and sort of watch. And so I did a lot of different jobs, and I kept that attitude. I mean, I'll never forget the day I was at the craft service table and somebody came up to me and said, "Oh, you cut that cheesecake so nicely." And I wanted to take the knife and go, I have a master's degree. I can do things other than cut cheesecake, thank you. But I didn't. I said, thank you very much. Can I get you a cup of coffee to go with that cheesecake? And that's it. That's, no matter what level you rise to, there's always stuff you don't know. There's always things you can learn. So you need to always be humble, and you need to always ask questions. And you need to not stop chasing your dreams, I mean, I knew nobody in Hollywood, and I look back at the career that I've had, and I'm actually just kind of amazed by it all.
Thank you very much. I absolutely agree that humbling and with the right attitude, people can achieve anything. So take a very good note of that, guys. Peter, how about your experience? How did you start?
I started at a commercial production company 37 years ago. I filled in for a friend just as a PA. It was only supposed to be there for about 3 days, and wound up staying there 6 months because I liked it, and then I PA'd for about 4 or 5 years because I liked it. People knew I studied photography, so people knew that. They would send me out to get current pictures of old location folders, and I liked that because I could still take pictures, and I'd be out meeting people. You are the go-between between the film company and the general public. I worked with a location scout for a while who trained me, and I did about 25 some odd years of commercials, and then I got a job on a feature, and they said, "Do you want to stay on?" And I'd never done features, and all my commercial directors had retired or passed away, so I wasn't really in those circles anymore, and I figured why not. And so for the last 13 some odd years I've been doing features. And so that's how I got started.
Very successfully, I might add.
Thank you very much.
Guys, while we're talking, do you mind turning off the microphone so that people don't... Yeah, perfect. Yeah.
Now, no, it's not off. Is this I'm like being really stupid.
So you see this black button, you just slide it up and it's on. So my next question would go to Il, but besides saying why you got interested in the sector, please focus on what type of skills people need to have in order to be able to be in the location scouting business, and what's the difference between location scouting and location management.
First of all, madloba to you all for coming today. I'm sorry we have to do this in English. My Georgian needs a bit of practice, but hopefully next time we'll do it in Georgian. So, most location managers also scout. Some people like Laurie has specialized in just scouting for years because she doesn't like the logistical bit like I do. I think that's probably fair to say, isn't it?
I like it, I just prefer the creative side.
Right. The location managing encompasses a remarkable diversity of traits to do it properly. Somebody once said that it's the only job you have where you start with a camera and finish with a toilet brush. And it's true because, the first part of the job is obviously taking photographs, choosing locations, showing them to the production designer, etc., etc. But once you get into the meat of it, you need a tremendous variety of personal attributes. You need, obviously to be good with the camera, have a decent eye, have a reasonable working knowledge of architecture, but there are so many other things besides. You need to, once you get into the movie, you need to start budgeting, so you need to be good with money. And then as a location manager, you're building a team, so you need to be good at choosing people, having a good eye for people. I generally, when I interview people, I know within the first 10 seconds whether I'm going to hire the person or not. It's weird how first impressions are lasting impressions, which I think was a rock pop song from the 70s, I think. So, but you need to be good at delegation, management technique, like I say, building and maintaining a team. And then once you get into the filming, it's about hanging on for grim death. It's as those of you who've worked on a set will know, it's a tiring run if you're doing a long feature film. So you need persistence, tenacity, because dark days and nights will come. Somebody once said, the night is darkest before the dawn, and I think of that all the time, because sometimes when you're on a big crazy feature and you've got Michael Bay or somebody screaming at you, and you've been doing it for 25 years and you still want to cry, hanging on for grim life, having the courage to hang on is an important aspect of the job. But I think diversity, a diverse portfolio of attributes is required for the job.
Good. So is it true when they say that, for instance, if things go well, there are very many producers in line to take the credit, and if even one slightest bit goes wrong, it's the location manager's fault?
Absolutely. I mean, often you see a chat show, and I remember watching, I think, Letterman, and Tom Cruise was the guest, and he was talking about his movie Vanilla Sky, where they shut down Times Square in New York. And he didn't, even though I hate that location manager, he didn't mention the location manager who did this amazing job in just talking to every business within a 10-block radius and putting it all together. Clint Eastwood's done the same thing. He's been on chat shows. A lot of directors do the same thing, where they completely forget about the location manager. So don't get into location managing for the praise, get into it for the fun of it.
Good to know. Would you like to add something, Laurie?
Yeah, I would. I'm not very good with this microphone. Sorry, guys. I would actually. What Ilt said is right. We get absolutely no credit. We have the hardest job on the set. So we kind of took matters in our own hand, and Peter, Ilt, and I, and several other location managers started the Location Managers Guild. And I brought some magazines. I put them on the table there. Please take a couple. And the one thing in particular I want to point out is the career focus column, where you can see that we all come from such different, really different backgrounds, and we basically have the same personalities. Like Ilt mentioned, tenacity, persistence. We all have pretty good senses of humor, because if you can't laugh when you work such long hours, you're in the wrong business. But mainly I wanted to say the Location Managers Guild is us trying to explain to everybody what we do and who we are and what the value of a good location manager is. Because even people in the industry don't really understand what we do. They think we're the people who, park the trucks and move the porta potties around, and there's really so much more to that. So in addition to everything you hear from the stage today, please help yourselves to the magazines. I brought plenty of business cards for everybody. My email is on it. You can always ask me any questions. But there's kind of a lot to learn about our field, because we're really one of the unsung heroes in the film industry, I think. And as Ilt said, if you want glory, this is not really the job to go into, but it sure is fun.
It's one of the few jobs in the business where you actually deal with the outside world. A lot of the other departments, grip, electric, camera, just deal with other people in the film crew, whereas we have to deal with the outside world. I mean, you can be a complete arsehole and still be an Academy Award-winning director of photography, but if you're an asshole, you can't be a very good location manager, because you're trying to persuade people to let you use their building. So personality is everything.
Yeah, and communication is the key. So, and the right approach. Would you like to add something?
And it's not only that we are the go-between between the film company and the public, but in locations we deal with every department. Grips just deal with that, and electrics just deal with that. There's some overlap, but we have to make sure that every department has their needs met. So that's also a fun part of the job, and that you're not insulated in your own little world. You see everything that's going on the shoot and in the prep. And all.
You have to learn to speak the language of the other departments as well. Obviously these days visual effects is a big component in our worlds, especially on the sort of the bigger movies. And learning, it's something you mentioned earlier on, is you can never stop learning. I mean, I've been finding that over the last few years especially, I've been learning all kinds of stuff about the significance of whether you can use a particular location for a visual effect or not. So a word of advice is to, you know, as well as imposing your will on the proceedings, listen to the other departments and learn how they work, and that, especially again in visual effects, that's an increasingly important aspect of the job.
Thank you very much, Elt. This question actually goes to all three of you. Me and the audience would love to hear about your success stories. So why don't we start with you, Peter?
Success story. I consider all of my jobs successes.
Excellent.
If they're done right. I mean, I'm trying to think of any real major disasters that I've had on my jobs, and I can't think of anything that really went wrong. I mean, in the end, they all work out. Everything works out in the end. It's just how difficult is it to get there. But like I say, I think if I look at the big picture, I think everything's gone.
Look at your huge portfolio of films that you have and select one, maybe from Marvel Studios, I don't know, that was memorable in terms of getting your message across to everyone involved in the industry.
Well, I think when we did Star Trek at the Getty Museum in Los Angeles, which I think Thor shot there, but it got cut out of the movie. So I think we were the first major film besides Thor to work there, and it was in the film. It was pretty well featured in the film, and that was a good accomplishment. I'm proud of that. We made it work. It was a lot of prep. We could only work there I think it was like when they closed on Saturday to when they opened on Tuesday morning. So we had a very short window where we had to do everything: load in, light, art department, shoot, and wrap. So we only had a very short time. So that will be an accomplishment that I'm proud of. That one.
Excellent. How about you, Lauren?
I've got a little bit of a different twist to answer this question. My biggest success story is my 28-year-old daughter. And when I was pregnant with her, I was a location manager who had just gotten into the A level. The first movie I had to turn down because I was pregnant was Alan Pakula's Pelican Brief. And it kind of hurt, but it didn't, because it was my decision, and I knew I'd have to take a step or two back and if I wanted to become a mother. So what happened was I decided I was just going to scout, and I wasn't going to manage anymore, because when you are a manager, you need to be available 24/7. And as Katja said, my remark is always, if anything goes wrong, it's always the location department's fault. And if anything goes right, somebody else is there to take the credit for it. So I put out the word that all I was going to do was scout, and I thought, I'm probably going to go down to like maybe C or D level projects, but that's okay, my choice. And what happened was, I guess I sort of created this mystique, and nobody else was doing this before, so people were like, well, if she only scouts, she must be good. And I worked all the time, and I worked all the time in LA because I wanted to stay based at home while she was growing up. And it was great because scouting, the hours are long, but they're your own hours. So if you want to stay up until 4 in the morning because you want to go to see her in the school play or whatever, there's a little bit more flexibility, which these guys do not have at all because they are tied to the set and the producers and the crew. And now that everybody has a cell phone, as great as they are, it's an even shorter leash. In the days when we used to have a pager, you're always available and you're always on call. So that really was my greatest success story, was how I was able to work in a pretty demanding business and somehow, and I guess it's motherhood is the necessity of invention, right? Because if I didn't have Sarah, I would never have thought that I was good enough to specialize, and I didn't do it because I thought I was good enough. I thought I had to do it. So it turned out really well for me, and I love I love scouting because it's really the creative side. It's the side that, for me personally, is a lot more fun. So I'm really fortunate that it worked out the way it did. And if I had to name one movie, it would be four. It would be A River Runs Through It, it would be Memoirs of a Geisha, it would be Seabiscuit, and it would be Heat.
Thank you very much. On to you, Ilt. How was your experience?
Sorry. Has anybody seen Inception?
That's my favorite movie, which I've seen a zillion times, I admit.
Right, well, if you think about how brain-bending it was to watch, multiply that by 10, and that's how brain-bending it was to work on. On my first day, I went to Warner Brothers, and you had to go to this special room, because Chris Nolan's very secretive about the script, so you had to go to a special room. You couldn't take a pen and paper or a camera or anything. And I read the script during the morning, felt slightly nauseous, went to lunch at the Warner Brothers commissary, went back to that same room, read the script again, and then went home and took 2 aspirin and lay down in a darkened room for 2 hours. And when I read a script, sometimes I think, ooh, that's going to be tough. But when I read that script, I felt physically sick. I thought, how the are we going to do this? But we did it, and it was just, I felt like I was a tightrope walker every day, because he expected so much, he asked so much of us, expected so much of us, and we delivered so much. I'm really proud of that, and it turned out great. So that would be by a margin my biggest success.
That's a masterpiece, to say the least.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thank you for making sure that it actually happened, because it really touches on several topics that are very interesting, and the way that it is shot is also mesmerizing.
No, it's amazing.
Yeah. So let's move on to the challenges. Laurie, what was the biggest challenge throughout your career that was difficult to accomplish, but maybe you still managed to do it?
I don't know how or why it happened, but I work frequently with a woman named Janice Pauley, who's a great location manager. And we, for some reason, had this long run of testosterone-laden movies. I don't know why. And we started with Michael Mann. We did a lot of projects with Michael Mann. We did Face Off with John Woo, and then I went on to do a lot of Michael Bay movies. It was kind of odd, but I think probably the hardest person I ever worked with was Michael Mann. And you'd look for something, and you'd look for something, and you should keep looking for something. You bring back something that you thought was just what he asked for, and he'd look at you over his glasses like this, and he'd go, "This one's pretty good. Now go find me something better." And again, you kind of have to develop a Zen approach, because you realize they're paying me every day to go out there and keep looking. So basically, they're paying me every day to go out there and get better at my job. And Michael was very demanding, but he also, I think, made me a really good scout. I think that he also made me realize, thankfully, very early on in my career, that you can't bullshit a bullshitter. You need to know what you're talking about, and he is an expert on architecture and lighting and camera and aperture. And if you don't know, you need to just say you don't know. And if you say you don't know often enough, you won't have a job. So you really need to educate yourself and go out there and learn about architecture and design. And he doesn't, he's an odd one. He doesn't really rely that heavily on his production designer. He likes to have a direct contact with everyone who's working for him. So I would say that was one of the most frustrating and rewarding relationships that I've had.
Wonderful. Besides the mind-blowing Inception, what was your biggest challenge, Ilt?
I think remaining sane after doing 4 Transformers movies. Going to what Laurie said, there's an old joke amongst location managers that you have Michael Bay, Michael Mann, and Michael Cimino locked in a room together, and you have a gun, but you only have 2 bullets. What do? You shoot Michael Mann twice to be sure. I think, yeah, I mean, Transformers, Michael, I got on fine with Michael Bay. He could try your patience, and it was like dealing with a wild animal sometimes, but he pushed me to be better at my job. I think Laurie sort of said that about Michael Mann, and Michael Bay was that for me. I did, as I say, did 4 movies with him. You know, to have somebody like Michael Bay or Michael Mann indeed, who doesn't take no for an answer. Chris Nolan, the same thing. You can't, can't say no. They come up, they see a location in a magazine and they want to film there, and you have to make it happen. I had to make it happen for Michael Bay at the Great Wall of China, which was a barrel of laughs because dealing with, I don't know if anybody's ever dealt with the Chinese authorities. Well, pray God you never have to again, because it's really difficult to work there. I'm looking forward to working in Georgia because it seems like the very opposite. Everybody's been so agreeable so far. And that was one of the biggest challenges, was trying to get a Transformers movie done in China. But then, then we shot at the pyramids, and that was no picnic either. The Egyptian people were lovely, but we were being careful with 6,000 years of heritage there, so we had to be on our toes there. So bringing in, I think when we, I don't know what it's like here, but when I'm talking to a homeowner about bringing a film crew there, I say, imagine Genghis Khan leading a herd of wild animals or wild elephants. That's what it's going to be like having them come through your house. We'll fix everything, and we'll take great precautions to make sure everything's okay. But it's, be assured that it'll be messy for a while, but it'll get better after that. So taking a director like Michael Bay to somewhere like the pyramids or to the Great Wall of China is enough to give you heartburn. And getting through that and being able to go back to those places, I think I can go back to every single location I've ever shot at. So I think that's both a challenge and a success at the same time.
The good thing is that everyone here is committed to making sure that the film industry actually moves forward, meaning that it will be much easier to acquire permits, as well as making sure that everything goes smoothly. So you can always count on people that you meet in the audience today, and now that you have their contacts, you can easily exchange that. And of course, we're here to help for the entire 4 years that we are here, until the Economic Security Program finishes in 2024. Then how about you, Peter?
I don't really have any specific. I would just say every job has its own little challenges, whether it's an irate homeowner who's next door to where you want to film, or trying to get into the Getty, or if you're overseas, trying to work with the local authorities there. But every place you go has its own little quirks and things that pop up that you don't anticipate that you then have to deal with. So it's just kind of a blanket thing, and that's what we do, is we try and put out all those fires that pop up that pop up out of nowhere.
This next question is $1 million question, and I want to ask each of you to give the audience advice how to move forward in this industry. So for instance, what is key to being successful in the industry? All of you. You can start, Ilt.
I always think about, I think it was Einstein said that success was 10% inspiration and 90% perspiration or sweat. And I think that's been the key to certainly my success. I can only speak for myself, but I've noticed that a hallmark of people who've done well in the business is that they're tenacious and they're persistent. Because you're always going to get knocked back. People are going to say no to you, and it's the ability to take a no and turn it into a yes somehow. So persistence, absolutely. No amount of knowledge will make up for the fact of hard work and persistence. It seems like an old-fashioned notion, but it's true. I think just going at it again and again. When I didn't know anybody in the film business when I first started. In fact, I came, unlike these guys, I came from a much more non-film associated business. I worked in the stock market as an investment analyst, but I learned about things that have stood me in good stead in the business, like letter writing, memo writing, team building, management skills. So all of you in this room have got things that you can bring to the party, but couple with that persistence and hard work. Again, it's old-fashioned, but it's what I would say. I mean, it seems like a statement of the bleeding obvious, but you'd be amazed how many people try and coast on their knowledge. They coast on their film school attributes, but it really, without the persistence, you're nothing.
Good to know. Note down, guys. How about you, Laurie? What would you say?
To persistence, I would add a sense of humor, a sense of humility, and just to believe in yourself, because there are so many times that there are a ton of people who won't believe in you, and I remember the first time on a job where, as you're coming up in the business, your main job, I think, is to keep your ears open and soak up everything when you're working as a PA or craft service or whatever. Soak up everything that you can so that you're always listening. And I remember the first time when I felt I could speak, and I spoke, and I gave my opinion on something, and I almost was like, am I like allowed to do that? Am I allowed to? And it's great now to realize that you're a part of the creative team, and your opinion is you're not only allowed to do it, you're expected to do it. You're expected to have an opinion on things. And to me, that was really, that was when I knew that I arrived. So don't arrive too soon is my advice. Listen and learn as much as you can, and you will somehow know when you've arrived. When you have something that's really important to say that's going to add to the conversation. And it's really, for me, it was like the most magical thing that happened to me.
Wonderful. What about you, Peter?
I think it's often said, it's definitely sense of humor and humility, that you can always learn more, and what can I add to that? I'm not quite sure.
I think humility is a great one.
Yeah.
Even when you've arrived, don't lose that humility. People make that mistake all the time. And every movie has a moment where the quintessence of that notion is encapsulated. Like, I worked on a movie called Hancock with Will Smith. And we were filming down in the harbour, and we were going to start filming on the Monday morning. So on the Sunday evening, we were bringing in the trucks to be ready. And I'd arranged with this parking lot guy to have the parking lot ready at 7 o'clock. Well, actually 9 o'clock. But I told him that we'd probably want to try and bring the trucks in at 7 o'clock. I got there with my assistant at 6 o'clock, just to be sure. And the parking lot was full of cars. I said, oh my God. And my assistant was freaking out. And I said, well, let's just find out. So I called the parking lot guy. He goes, oh, don't worry about it. I forgot to tell you. I've rented it out to a Mexican pop concert. And it's all young people, and they'll be gone at 7 o'clock. They'll be gone by 7:30. The concert finishes at 7. All the cars will be gone by 7:30, and your trucks, when they come in at 9, it'll be fine. So at 7 o'clock, fair enough, the cars start to disappear. And by 7:30, there are no cars left. But it was all sort of young Latino families, and they brought their babies with them. It was this sort of an outdoor concert thing. And instead of 500 cars, there were 500 poopy diapers. Like balls of shit, basically, all over the parking lot.
Oh my God.
Sorry, you can cut that one out.
No, it's fine.
So my assistant went, oh my God, what are we going to do? And I said, I've got good news and I've got bad news. The bad news is we'll never get a clean. Oh, the good news is we can get a cleaning crew here, and the bad news is it's us. And he goes, out of the question. 4 years of college. I didn't go to film school to pick up poopy diapers. I said, well, I can't make you do it. Just you wait there for the truck. So I put my mask on and I put my gloves on, and I got a plastic bag out of my car, and I slowly started walking around, throwing the poopy. And he was leaning against his car, looking at me, going, 4 years of college, film school. Oh my God, what am I doing here? And after about 20 minutes, he joined in, and we picked them up just before the first truck came in. And we often talk about that as that was sort of our humility moment on Hancock. So keep that in mind.
Excellent. So now I'm curious to know who makes the ultimate decision about a location for a specific film. Any of you can start answering this question.
Well, it depends upon the movie. Usually, ultimately, it's the director, but the director is sometimes very heavily influenced by the production designer, sometimes not. Sometimes, if I feel strongly about something, I worked on a movie with Alan Bakula, which was a horrible movie called Consenting Adults, which nobody ever heard of or saw for good reason. But he actually changed the end of the movie based on a location that I found. unfortunately, I felt it made the movie worse, but he was so taken with the location that he wanted to, and on Heat too, Michael Mann, believe it or not, changed a couple of locations to match locations that I found, because he thought that they were more evocative than what he had imagined. And that's the interesting thing for me. Like, I wish to God I could remember what the exact location was, but Michael Bay once asked me to find something. And let's say he wanted it to be white. And I'm looking and I can't find it, I can't find it, I can't find it. And it's taking a lot of time, and he's not necessarily a patient man. And so finally I see something, and it's the complete opposite of what he's asked me to bring him. And I think to myself, well, I mean, you know, he'll rip it up and yell at me, and that'll be that. Or maybe he'll see what I see. And I went and I showed it to him, and he looked at it, and he looked at me, and he said, "This is exactly what I asked you to find 2 months ago. What the fuck took you so long?" And I was like, yeah, I said to him, "This is not what you asked me to find. This is the direct opposite of what you asked me to find, and I'm really glad that you like it." And that's the thing, is they think they know what they want, but they don't know what they want. And especially when you're shooting in a foreign country, or it's something that's really out of their realm, they have no idea. So they'll give you a rough suggestion, but those are the people that I love to work with, who really see you as a collaborator, so that you're not just, you know, they don't just say, you know, bring me this configuration of a tree, a rock, and a hillside. They really expect you to think about it and to understand how the action is going to play in and around and through the location, and to bring them something that's going to maybe add another dimension to the film. So I think it's a if you're lucky enough, it's a group effort, but not all projects are like that.
I see. You want to add on this, Ilse?
Yeah, I think at the risk of sounding cynical, there's a saying in Hollywood these days: we're not making a movie, we're making a budget. And the studio has a profound impact these days on where we go. That's the reason why Atlanta, Georgia, the other Georgia, has become so predominant in our lives, because Atlanta has very aggressive incentives, which is great that Georgia, this Georgia, has got these incentives now. I think that will help tremendously to attract, you know, there's no doubt about the array of the diversity of magnificent locations. But I think the economic impact, the economic element is very important too. Yes, of course, the production designer, then the director have to say so, but you know, the incentives are not to be sneezed at. Peter and I just worked on the Suicide Squad, or Suicide Squad 2, and we were in the business of looking for incentives then. We ended up in Panama, not just because it has a great look, but also because it had incentives as well.
I do love the Suicide Squad, and can't wait to see the second one, so count me in. And Peter, what is it that you are looking into a location when you try to select or advise director to actually use a certain location?
It's like what Lori said, you're trying to interpret what the script says and how the action can work in that setting. Again, whether it's something very specific that they're looking for, you know, a yellow house with 4 windows, or an idea. And that's what we do, is we bring them back. We try and interpret the script in conjunction with production designer and director, and it's a process. You go down that path trying to find the right thing that fits everybody's needs, with all of these other considerations, financial and logistical, and so it's not just one thing that you're looking for. You have to look at the whole package, and where can you park the trucks and things like that. All of that factors into it. So it's not really one path that you go down. It's multiple, and you're trying to weave it all together.
So over the past week, we've been together 24/7, and I, together with you, actually rediscovered the locations that I've been to so many times. But thanks to you, I actually looked at it in a different way, because I looked through the lenses of your eyes, let's say. So now I'm curious to know, and probably the audience too, what locations stood out, because you have seen so many countries alongside your wealth of careers, and I want to know what was mesmerizing, what was unacceptable. So be frank, we can handle the truth.
Unacceptable? Nothing. the three names that jump out at me are Rustavi, Kazbeki, and Vadzia. And if you think about those three places, they perfectly illustrate the diversity of looks that you have in Georgia. That's been the biggest surprise for me. I mean, I've been on quite a few of these fam tours, and they're always fun, but I've been greatly surprised. I mean, I've really enjoyed the company of our admirable hosts, but I've really enjoyed the diversity of looks. It's astonishing. In a remarkably small country, has a remarkably large and diverse stock of great locations. But those three are the ones that jump out for me.
What about you, Laurie?
The fact that we would be allowed to shoot in a historic cultural area is really amazing. You know, the texture and the depth of field at the cave, I mean, it was mind-blowing. The other thing that I love is I love things with a lot of texture and patina on them, and I love the factory. I love the town that the factory was in as well.
Rustavi.
Yeah, just really, really beautiful. It's really strange when we go on fam tours because people have lined up a lot of times the icons of a city or a country, and that's not necessarily, well, it's probably never what we want to see because everybody knows those. We want to see what nobody knows. And I like to see the gritty underside, and a lot of times it's areas where sometimes when these trips are run by the Tourism Bureau, it's the last area they want to show us because they don't want their countries portrayed that way. But to us, sometimes those gritty undersides are really the most interesting thing. And it's especially lovely when there's a gritty underside and then an absolutely beautiful top side. And I didn't get to see that much of the grit here, but what I saw I loved, and there's just so much beauty. I mean, the mountains, my only regret is that we're not staying longer. It's really a diverse and beautiful country, so madlava.
Wonderful to hear that. Peter, what's your take on last week?
I would say also the Rustavi, the factory and the town there, and unfortunately we haven't spent much time here in Tbilisi. Yesterday we wandered around for a little bit, and that was fantastic. We were out for only a couple of hours, just wandering through some of the narrow streets, and we poke our heads into doors and find these amazing stairwells and foyers of buildings and behind buildings, and it's that kind of stuff that you can't find anywhere else. That is what attracts us. But yeah, I mean, and through all these narrow streets and tunnels, and you can picture great car chase sequences and things going through these streets. So I think that was my favorite part yesterday, just wandering around the town.
So
I could tell you were mesmerized.
I don't know if those of you in the audience have the same thing, but I know when I'm in a special place when I'm scouting. You know, most of the time you're obviously scouting here, but when I feel it here, that's when I know I'm in a special place. And I had those three places I mentioned, I had that same thing. There's an additional emotional component which comes to play, and you have the excited butterflies in your stomach, and I had that in all those three places. I mean, if I have a piece of advice for you out there, those of you who are writers, write a script to that factory we went to yesterday. I mean, I was writing a script as I was walking around. It cries out for a film that's, you know, science fiction or something like that, but those are great places.
And I was very lucky to actually witness that. So the last question before we move to the audience would be, what would you tell to your colleagues back home about Georgia?
Come on out.
Yeah, ditto. Get over here and see what it's all about because it's pretty great.
And is there any particular movie genre that would be interesting for this location, or any of the locations that we've seen for the past week?
I mean that's the beauty of the country, is that it, you know, rom-coms or science fiction or whatever, there's something for everyone here. So, and there's something in the air here that I love. I sense that, you know, when we go on these fam tours, we're promised the earth by our host places, and sometimes when you come back to try and shoot there, things aren't quite as rosy as they plan. I have a profound sense of the authenticity of the people here. I have a profound sense of integrity, and that's an important component when we're choosing where to go. Again, I'm not going to single out China again, but I'll do it just once more. I just thought, oh God, what's going to go wrong? Because I don't believe what I'm being told here. Whereas you people, lovely people, all over the country, we've had a great feeling about the ability to get a good big film done here.
Wonderful. So let's move on to questions from the audience. If you would like to ask a question, please raise your hand and come near me so I can give you the microphone. We would like everyone to hear it, so...
Don't be shy.
Don't be shy, exactly.
Well, that covers it.
Yes, please. And also introduce yourself, please.
Hello, my name is Leon. I'm mostly shooting behind the scenes. So I've been to many locations in Georgia, but I never thought about Rustavi like that. But I've seen many shoots in Rustavi. They replicated Paris actually. I don't know why. Yeah, they started in Paris and they continue in Rustavi. So my question is, how do you watch the movie you worked on so much? For example, Inception. Can you watch it subjectively? Can you love the movie that you worked on, or you cannot?
Brilliant question.
Yeah, that's a good one.
I always, I have to watch a movie at least twice. I mean, I try and go to the cast and crew screenings because it's fun to see your colleagues who you went through the war with. And I'm never objective for the first time around. I'm thinking, oh my God, remember how hard it was to park the trucks there? So I have to watch a movie 2 or 3 times before I can achieve any objectivity of whether it's any good. The first time I watch it, it's fun to do because I'm thinking, wow, that's cool, that turned out okay after all the blood, sweat and tears. So the first time round, it's with my heart or my head, and with my heart the second time. So
I like when I first started working as a location manager, just the memory of, it seemed like all of the locations that were the hardest to get, that we cried the most over, ended up on the cutting room floor and you never see them. And that's like, you know, that really takes you out of the movie. I mean, you just want to sit there and cry. I think I have a harder time watching other people's movies when they don't do a good job on the locations and you're watching it and they're telling you that you're in Paris and you're like, no, you're not. You're at 4th and Main in downtown LA. You guys didn't do a really good job with the signage or the this or the that. So it's hard I need to have a very compelling movie to be able to enter it, be sucked into it, and watch it as a movie and have it take me someplace, as opposed to a movie that doesn't have such a strong story, so my mind is wandering a little, and I'm looking at the locations and questioning them. So it's not only the movies that I work on, it's bad with watching almost every movie. As much as I love movies, they're not so easy to watch unless it's a really well-executed film.
Peter?
Yeah, both of that. Yeah, when you're watching other movies that you haven't worked on, you wonder how they pulled that off when there's some shots in some locations. It's how did they do that? But also when you're watching yours, it's great to see all that work on the screen. But sometimes it's on for a second or two, and we spent 3 months prepping that and 5 days filming, and it's on for 3 seconds on the screen. And also these days with all the visual effects, it's amazing how they transform some of the locations, and also how some of those locations could have been shot in my driveway with all the visual effects, but we've spent months looking for that location. So it's a little of both, but it's awesome to see it on the screen.
it's funny when you're watching other people's movies that are based in LA, because I've been a location manager based in LA for 27 years. And if there's a location I don't know that comes up early in somebody else's movie, I'm thinking about that for the rest of, I'm basically thinking my way around the map for the rest of the movie. It completely destroys the movie for me.
You should introduce yourself. That's a great question, actually.
Hi, my name is Tismari. I actually just moved back from LA to Georgia.
Welcome back.
Thank you. So yeah, I was just wondering, what are your thoughts about the special effects versus actual locations?
The first time it came up for me was on Pirates 4, and we were shooting on Kauai. and they needed to have a steep cliff and a ravine that Johnny Depp could swing across to the other side. And I said to them, I'm happy to look until the cows come home, but you guys have to understand geography. The Hawaiian Islands they're volcanic, and the way they're formed, there's no deep chasms or ridges. They physically don't exist here. So they had me keep looking, and I came back and I said exactly the same thing, and finally they realized they had to do it with visual effects. So I was told that I had to find a slope of so many degrees with basically I was scouting geometry. I wasn't and to me, because it was the first time this happened to me, I was like, oh my God, my career is over. This is it. It's all going to be visual effects from here. And that hasn't happened at all. I mean, they really need, like I worked on the Lion King, the live action Lion King, and it was some of the coolest scouting because it was, we had such a small footprint because I was working with the visual effects team of 2 guys, and they'd have a couple boxes, I'd carry a couple of their boxes, and they'd LiDAR the geysers in Yellowstone Park. And it's so fascinating because then they go back with these digital images, and the hyenas in the movie are moving around those geysers in Yellowstone Park. And it was such a cool thing. Talk about watching movies you worked on. That was one that I really enjoyed because what I was taking them to scout was such a small element of what they were incorporating into everything else. So if I could work with visual effects teams and be the queen of plate shots where I had such a small footprint and I could literally go anywhere in the world, I was just scouting on Shang-Chi, the Marvel movie in northern Vietnam at the Chinese border. I never could do that with a full crew because I was going to places that were not near airports. There were no hotels there. There was nothing for tourism, but there was some incredible scenery. So plate shots, I am no longer afraid of, I'm happy to say, and I would be love to be dubbed the queen of plate shots.
I want to be the king then because it's the most fun you can have with your clothes on because you don't have all the whiny baby crew members. You have really cool, sophisticated, very sort of techie, quite nerdy, very sweet visual effects guys. They're always, the departments differ in their personalities, and I'm not going to go down a negative road there, but the visual effects guys are always super cool, and I've had a great time. I mean, 2 examples from my career: Kong Skull Island. We shot in Hawaii, Vietnam, and Australia, and the way they stitched that together so it seemed like it was all one island. It was a remarkable job. I love the way they did that. Because ultimately, we went to those different countries because there were different looks in each country, but somehow they stitched them together very cleverly so that it was this nice continuum of King Kong's Island. And then the other one I would think, a different kind of example, I worked on the first Black Panther, and we scouted Africa, South Africa, we went all over the place, and we were going to shoot a lot of it there, but in the end we did plate shots, and most of what Wakanda is just outside Atlanta, Georgia. The use of visual effects plate shots there was nothing short of amazing, and that's, to this other gentleman's point, when I watched Black Panther I thought, Jesus Christ, they did a great job, because we were in a horse farm outside Atlanta, and now we're in Wakanda. I have the greatest admiration for the use of visual effects.
And what did you say at one of the locations that we saw regarding Black Panther? You wish you had discovered it earlier.
Yes. Oh. Exactly.
Peter, you want to answer our guest question?
I don't know what I can add. I mean, it's a while ago, a few years ago, there was a lot of panic in the location community that our jobs are going to disappear because it's all going to be on computers now, and what are we going to do? But like Lori said, they still need the plate shots. I mean, some of the stuff they're doing, I don't know the term for what it's called, like in Mandalorian, where they have huge stages with live video that the actions and it moves with the actors. It's pretty incredible. But they still need plates for that. But yeah, I mean, again, what they can do, they still need the foreground stuff for the visual effects. That we'll still have jobs.
Yeah, those video walls are amazing. The use of those now, and it's great for us because whereas previously we'd have to lock down miles of roads for driving shots. Now we just have we send a visual effects plate unit out with a Russian arm or something like that. Like on, you see Birds of Prey, a lot of the driving shots we did there, some of the driving shots were actually, the car actually driving on actual streets, but we also did a lot of plate stuff where we just shot the streets and then back to the studio and there's Margot Robbie in a stationary car sort of pretending to drive. It's amazing.
Angel.
What?
Margot Robbie is an angel for many of us.
She is. She is an angel.
Any more questions? We do realize that we asked exhaustive questions, but I'm sure you guys are more... Yeah. Oh, I thought you raised a hand, sorry. Yes, please. Do you mind coming to the microphone?
Hi, I'm William Boyd. I have no background in film whatsoever, but a keen interest. Really sort of building on Levan's question again, and something you mentioned earlier about ceasing to enjoy writing because your professor killed it for you. And I wonder, I hated English literature in my last years of high school because it was all about dissecting it and pulling it apart, and I lost all the enjoyment from it because of that. So, again, with the movies, you talk about the satisfaction you have, and it takes however long to enjoy it, but does it lose its magic when you know how the sausage is made, as it were?
No. It enhances. I think even though we know how the sausage is made, there's a lot less fat in what we do, and I actually enjoy the remembrance of what it took to make that sausage. Not wishing to take the sausage metaphor too far. So no, I look back, I look at films I made 20 years ago, or I did 90 episodes of The X-Files, and I recently I watched the DVDs just for fun, just to see if they held up after 20 years. I thought, oh wow, that was fun, and it spawned a bunch of interesting memories about what it was like to do that. So no, it never gets old. We get paid to travel around and see cool stuff and make fun movies, and it would be churlish to be anything other than positive about it. For me, anyway.
I couldn't agree more. I am so fortunate to have my job. I don't really work in the sausage factory. I pick the ingredients.
Whoa,
excellent.
So, I remember on Memoirs of a Geisha, we have a river in Napa, and I remember, being on it in a kayak at dawn, and there's, fog coming off the... so impossibly beautiful, and thinking, they're paying me to be here. Right. And then recently I scouted on Jungle Cruise, and they sent me to South America to follow the Amazon River for 2 months. Who does that, And you're sitting there, and you're like, how did this happen to me? Why am I even here? And you're being paid very generously, and we're very fortunate, we've got a really strong union in LA. So, hopefully, depending upon what happens in the United States, I'll have a good pension, and you never know. But I'll go down that road. But it's a fabulous job, and it's always been magical. And as I said, I've been super lucky to work with a lot of collaborative people. So what I love about my job is I'm there early enough before people start hating each other and they start cutting money from the budget. And the departments really nip at each other's heels because it's like, well, what are you taking it from the camera department for? Go take it from this department, go do that. Get it from the art department. They have a So when I'm on, everybody loves each other because they still think they have a lot of money. And they're open. It's like the magical time where it's like, well, let's pursue ideas. Let's think outside the box. And that's what I love, because I really do get to have a broad perspective that then I bring back to them, and then they have to start rolling up their sleeves and doing the real work of, what can we really realistically do. And again, that's the great thing about Georgia, is there are so many different looks and so many different ways to skin a cat, if you will, here, that it makes it a really, it's a very enriching atmosphere for filmmakers to work in, I think.
Just to key on what Laurie just said, if I have another piece of advice, it would be, don't get too wrapped up in what you're doing in your job. Don't forget to stop and smell the roses. So often, We've been busy at dawn parking trucks or making sure the toilets work properly. And sometimes you look up and there's the most amazing rose-colored sky, and you think, wow, my head is a sort of carousel of Kodak moments from all of the cool places I've been lucky enough to go to. And to that gentleman's point, when I see one of the movies I've worked on, I think, oh my God, I remember we shot at Transformers 2 at Petra in Jordan. And we did the filming, and then we loaded everything into the helicopters, and we sent them away to Oman for the next piece. And I was, because it's a wonder of the world, I stayed there myself to make sure I was the last person to leave, that everything was perfect. So I'd been up for about 48 hours straight, and so everybody left, and it was about, I don't know, 6 o'clock at night, and I sort of took time just to sit down in the middle of this courtyard in front of this amazing, they call it the monastery building. Nobody else around except for the Bedouin guys who'd helped us load the helicopters. And I just thought, wow, I'm at work, God damn it. And so I think it's really important to be present in the moment and not take for granted how lucky you are to be doing the jobs you're doing.
Those are my favorite moments, before the crew arrives and after they leave. And I think the metaphor you were looking for, there are many ways to stuff a sausage. Yeah, there you go. But I think it enhances our appreciation of it because you know what went into it, and you know how they've transformed the location or how they've utilized the location. So I think maybe it might enhance our appreciation of what's on the screen instead of picking apart every scene that you see and looking at it, just from a logistical or technical point of view.
Sure. David?
So I think you have seen thousands of places, if not more. So how you are memorizing, how you are storing that information, like whenever there is a need, how you remember what you took where and how you because I'm not saying something you saw like last week, but you saw something 20 years ago. So how you're filing all of that information?
That is a really good question. And when we first started, we started shooting film. We'd take pans, we'd stitch them together, we'd tape them into folders, and now we're digital. If you're starting, have a system, because I had no system. I didn't really know what I was doing when I started. I kind of just started, and now my digital images are I just have them in a file according to movies. And it's true. I mean, the older I get, the more I forget. And it's like, what movie was that on? And I'll spend hours going through my hard drives for different movies because I'll never get the movie right. It's like, oh no, that was on that other movie So to have a library of locations and to organize that early on in your career, I think would be really, really good advice for anyone who's starting out. And I wish that somebody had given it to me when I started, because at this point it's just too late.
Start early is the moral of the story there. And something I do is whenever anybody gives me a business card, as soon as I'm able to, I transcribe the information on that business card into my smartphone, which can actually work as a Rolodex for you. I make sure that under where it says company, when you're inputting the information, I put a keyword or so that when you search your phone, like I'll put Georgia. I'll probably put Republic of Georgia so I don't get all the people from Atlanta in the thing. So that you can, and if you call up the names of the people that you met, that's a good starter to remind you about what you saw and where. But obviously, like with everything else, organization and method is key. So having a good filing system for your photographs, having a good filing system for the information, and more importantly, the interconnectedness between the two. It's no good having good pictures of a place if you don't know the contacts of the people that you met there.
Yeah, I mean, what they've said, it's organization. But for everybody who's working, it depends how your brain works, whether you file them by movie, whether you file them by location, but it's trying to be organized. And I'm trying to redo my system to try and get a little more organized. But I still have 5 file cabinets in my garage full of file folders, which were categorized. The Film Commission had a library Dewey Decimal system of how to categorize locations, and I kind of built on that. But it depends how your brain works. Whether you want to look for fields of flowers or ranches, or you look at, you know, where do you want to file those things? But we're constantly, oh, I know I've seen something, where is that? And usually that comes to you right after you're done with the job.
The other thing I would like to touch upon is the blessing and the curse that Google is and the internet. It helps us so much to do our job, and one thing that's great is the Google image. When you put in an image and it can give you similar images, it's super helpful. The problem is, because it's there and it's available for anyone, the producers tend to think, what do I need a location scout for? I can just go on Google Images and find my locations. And sometimes I feel like you need to hire a person to just track down stupid ideas that the producer has, because they don't realize that picture was taken 10 years ago. It's not there anymore. Or now there's a parking lot built right next door and you can't use it. So the internet really has been a blessing and a curse, and that's helped a lot. Doing internet research, it'll sort of remind me sometimes of images that I shot, and then, you know, go back to the movie and see where the place was and that sort of thing.
Excellent. If there are no more questions, then I want to thank all of you. Yeah? Oh, perfect. Yeah, sure. No problem.
Are you sure you're not scratching your head again?
It's so hard. Distinguish from here.
Otherwise, stop my thing.
Yeah, she caught the right. So my question is, can you talk about your experiences when you were the first on the location, and after that it went popular and everybody wants to shoot there? Because you're doing a huge job for this country or the place economically or so on. And how often does it take place?
Well, just a quick story on A River Runs Through It. We took over a town in Montana that was really dying, and we brought it back to life. And then when the movie came out, it's not only the money that we spend while we're making the movie, it's how the movie affects tourism and how it's like the gift that keeps giving. So what happened after A River Runs Through It is it's a movie about fly fishing, and Montana became extremely popular for fly fishing. People from California especially went there by droves. And some of the people in Montana were super, super happy because they were making money, and other people in Montana were just horrified by the fact that there were all of these outsiders coming to shoot in their rivers and taking their fish, coming to fish in their rivers rather. And so it's a blessing and a curse, really. But yes, we do a lot for the local economy.
Yeah, film tourism is definitely a thing. We know the guys from the Iceland Film Commission very well, and they report a huge uptick in tourism as a result of the Bond movie, particularly, but other movies there too. And the government in New Zealand reported the same thing. The Lord of the Rings did a massive amount for the South Island, especially of New Zealand. I was going to say something else, but I forgot. But oh, I know. I posted a picture of the church in Kazbegi, Gogeti Church, and on Instagram and on Facebook, and loads of my friends said, "Oh my God, I want to go there." So I'm hoping that we can help Georgian tourism by putting it on the big screen.
Yes, please, come. Introduce yourself.
My name's Nika. Thank you for great insights. My question is, you work internationally, obviously, and how you get, well, obviously you don't know everything in the world, or basically maybe you do, but other people, they're looking probably for local knowledge, right? So how do you find, except Google, how do you find those local people who know the local things? So just like you said, in LA, if you don't know the location from the film, you can get it out of your mind. Here in Georgia, we have these kind of guys sometimes. If you see something filmed in wild places of Georgia, and if I can't think where it is, it drives me crazy. I understand exactly your feel. But there are these kind of guys in every country in the world, right?
Yeah,
How
absolutely.
do you find us?
We stand, when we come abroad to work, we stand on the shoulders of giants, because we can't be successful without good local contacts, and we've already seen that there are great local contacts here. So the first thing you do is you contact productions that have been to those countries before, or to the film commission, or if there's no bona fide film commission, you talk to production service companies, because there are production service companies in most countries of the world, and you threaten them and you say, if you don't give me the best people, then we won't come, and that tends to sharpen their minds. And we just rely on the locals very heavily. That's part of what we do as supervising location managers, is to sort of form a linkage between the Hollywood production company and the locals, to get the most out of the locals, and to help the production appreciate local customs and practices, and by the same token get the local contacts to appreciate what the incoming production needs. So without you, we are nothing. When we come to Georgia, I'm going to be looking for you guys to help us with to make a successful movie. We can't do without good local help.
But there's also, I do a lot of research, and the first step of my research, as Ilt said, is to contact film commissions and production service companies, if I have a production service company that's trusted. A lot of times, like when I was in northern Vietnam, we had a whole area that we wanted to look at, and then we got to a point and he was like, well, we could either drive back or we can go over to the Laos border and leave from an airport there, but I haven't been on this road, but I think it might be interesting. And I said, well, that's cool that you haven't been there yet. I said, if we go back this way, it's everything that we've seen already, so let's go and explore. And it was really great fun because he's been there forever and he didn't know this area, and it actually had stuff that they liked the best was in this new area that we explored. So it's a combination of luck, local help, and good research.
I'd say, yeah, I mean, it's days of internet research and reaching out to the locals. And when one of us gets on the ground here, we're in the car driving around with either, like El said, film commission or local location people, and they'll steer us in the right direction, but oftentimes we'll say, well, wait, what's that over there? That's kind of what we're looking for. So, it's still that collaboration of the people who know what's there and us knowing what we're looking for, steering it in that right direction.
I was working on I think it was a television thing. I think it was The Young Pope, and they were supposed to be shooting in a waterfall in Puerto Rico, and that was when that tzatziki virus was around, and they decided they didn't want to go to Puerto Rico because there were a lot of cases of it there, so they said, find it somewhere else, find it in the continental United States. So I found this waterfall called oh God, what was it? It was some colorful waterfall that was somewhere in Florida. And I took the screenshot of it, and I contacted the forest ranger there, and he was like, yeah, we have a waterfall here, and he sent me a picture, and it was like this tiny little man-made thing. It turned out that the picture that I saw was somewhere in New Zealand, but the Chamber of Commerce from this little town in Florida had it on their website for being this colorful waterfall that was only 2 feet big in one of their, it was, so without knowing that I had to reach out to this park ranger to get confirmation on my great research, I really would have been in trouble had I spent the money and the time to travel to Florida to go and shoot this waterfall when it was in New Zealand. So.
Well, on behalf of the USAID Economic Security Program, the Georgian Film Cluster, Georgian National Film Center, and Enterprise Georgia, I want to thank our guests for being so candid with us with the answers. And right now I would like to invite all of you to a lunch break, one story down. Thank you very much for coming.